Welcome to Lesson 4. My name is Sylvie Cooper. I'm a qualitative health researcher working in the Clark as a teaching fellow. My research interests include management of chronic pain, patient education, and digital health. And in this work, I use mixed methods, qualitative and translational research approaches. In this lesson, we will cover what qualitative data is and how you might go about collecting it. This lesson will explain the situations where you might want to use qualitative data in your evaluation. You might have already decided that your evaluation is only going to use qualitative methods and have come here directly from Lesson 2. However, we would recommend that you go back and look at Lesson 3 as well. Visiting Lesson 3 might give you new ideas about how quantitative or mixed methods would be appropriate for your evaluation. We also have examples of how other people have run their evaluations, and this could be useful for you. So what is qualitative research and data? Qualitative data focuses on the narratives of people that you talk to, what they think and how they feel, what they've experienced in their life. As you can see from this quote from Merriman, qualitative work attempts to understand how people make meaning in their lives, how they make sense of their world, and how we can describe their experiences using their own words. We do this to try and get a full picture on how someone has experienced an event or experienced an intervention. Qualitative work aims to ask participants open-ended questions about things including their opinions, their values, their behaviors, and experiences. So, for instance, you could ask what someone does or does not like about the intervention that you're offering, or if there are aspects of their care that they feel they are not getting or are missing. Rather than defining what is happening for your participants, qualitative work aims to describe what is happening from their viewpoint. And unlike quantitative data, qualitative data doesn't usually include numbers, but rather analyzes the words that people choose to use when describing events. And these are gathered into narratives and analyzed in a collective to give an overall perspective of someone's experience with a service or an intervention. On this slide, we're showing you some of the key differences between qualitative and quantitative data. Having the comparison laid out like this for you could be helpful when thinking about the approach you might take in designing your evaluation. Qualitative data answers questions on the how and why something is happening, rather than just describing what. So, if a new service is being offered at your clinic, for instance, you might want to ask, why are people coming to this clinic rather than another? Have they received the new intervention or not, and why? And then what has been their experience of this new intervention? Qualitative work can be really useful for figuring out how something is happening and why. It's also really useful in helping you shape the questions that need to be answered and the direction that your evaluation might take as a result. In this way, qualitative work is not as prescriptive as quantitative work. In qualitative work, we are asking people about their experiences and asking them to tell us a story. And because we are asking for a depth of detail when we describe these experiences, we also want to make sure we're getting a full picture. And the way that you would do that is by asking for multiple perspectives on the same issue or the same service. You might want to get experiences of patients, staff, and funders when evaluating how a new intervention has been implemented. And what's key here is that all those stakeholders, patients, staff, and the funders, are likely to have different ideas about what the most important aspect of that intervention is. You can also take it up a level and look at organizations and healthcare systems and how they function, as well as the more micro collection of individual stories. So if you wanted to take a systems level view, you could potentially use qualitative research to understand the roles, responsibilities, and relationships of service users with the healthcare service and with healthcare providers, as well as policies, information systems, the physical spaces where services are located, and the technology used in delivering services that all make up this broader system. So now we're going to talk about how you might go about collecting qualitative data and what types of questions this data could answer. To remind you, let's think about what qualitative data actually is. It's descriptive information about the characteristics of an experience or an event that are difficult to define or measure or cannot be expressed numerically. Now thinking about the role that qualitative data might play in evaluation, we can think about the different questions that can be asked. You might want to describe how an intervention could affect service users' experiences of healthcare. Qualitative work could also help you maybe identify barriers and facilitators to the implementation of an intervention. And in identifying those barriers and facilitators, you would gather the different perspectives of people, potentially staff groups such as managers or frontline staff. If you have a mixed method study, potentially qualitative research could be used to describe how and why an intervention achieved the quantitative results that it did. For example, by explaining why patients did or did not like or did not attend a clinic or take up the intervention that was offered. It can be really useful to add a qualitative component to a study in this way, because it gives you a greater depth of understanding about the processes that are involved in implementing a successful intervention. And this allows us to think about how this might be replicated elsewhere. Qualitative work does a lot of the task of placing interventions in the context of other improvement activities too, and so it allows you to make connections between the effectiveness of the intervention you've designed and delivered and where it fits in the broader picture. On this slide and in the next few activities in this lesson, you can see some of the different methods that can be used for collecting qualitative data. All these methods involve asking open-ended questions of individuals or groups and analyzing their responses. It also includes documentary sources, which are relevant existing written materials such as existing evidence, public records, reports, email chains, minutes of internal and external meetings, and policies. The thing to remember with qualitative work is that because we're going in depth and in detail with the information that we're gathering, it can be quite time-consuming. You might spend a lot of time identifying and then interviewing participants and then transcribing and analyzing their responses. And so if you intend to use a qualitative approach in your evaluation, all you'll need to do is factor this in and ensure that you have the time and resources available to do this properly. The next few sets of slides cover each of the different methods that you might use for qualitative work. Have a look at them and decide what might be appropriate for your evaluation and to answer your questions. And when you've figured that out, you'll just need to account for how much time you might need to add to your Gantt chart when planning your evaluation. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening.